Of course, I want to ask you guys what the fascination was with this particular story, because it's a bit different than most of the mafia films or mob films that we grew up with. And Nick, you wrote and directed the film and starred in it. So tell me how the story came to you and what fascinated you the most.
Yeah, I read about 5, 6 newspaper articles about them about 10 years ago, about a real couple in the early 90s. And I just was fascinated. It's like, okay, how does this couple go from A to Z? And, you know, I had a handful of facts about their journey and then started to weave in the time. And the time was also fascinating for me. And I think, you know, the idea of the outsider was what probably attracted me most, was this person who was outside looking in and wanting, desperately wanting to be something that they weren't, which, you know, I spent a good amount of time in my life doing.
Oh, you were an outsider? No.
No, but I spend 25 years, you know, being someone I'm not as an actor. So I think that's something core to who and what I'm trying to be in my life in some way, I guess. So I found my way in, and it was exciting. It was wonderful to sit down and live with this journey and try to put the pieces together and how they would do it. And you know, the other part of it is it's a love story. Mm-hmm. So, which I was desperately holding on to. You know, you've seen films before where you follow that one character, that obsessive protagonist that takes you throughout, and he's sort of, you know, unlovable, and not, you're never really able to reach him. And I was fascinated by who can love this person and how a couple could go on this journey.
You directed the film as well, and I always want to know, for actors who star in their own, well, one of the stars in this film, directing and starring, what kind of challenge does that bring you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. The thing is, Anthony, the role I play in the movie, I shot all his stuff in one day. Mm-hmm. One day? I think it was one day. So I shot myself out in a day.
Martin Scorsese was he was the EP on the film.
That's correct.
Did he give you guys any sort of insight or advice, or, you know, did he have any input for any of you?
It was really during the edit, and obviously being kind enough to come on and help us and sponsor the film as an executive producer, and then give us these incredible notes on the storytelling and the edit, and just being precise, and you know, how for it to ebb and flow and get us through the journey. Growing
up, I know I've been fascinated by the whole mob culture and all the wonderful films that we have in Hollywood. How were you guys influenced, and what is the fascination with mob culture, having both starred in Sopranos and in Boardwalk Empire as well?
For me, it started with Godfather. I mean, I saw it when I was a kid, really young, and I love the family aspect of it, the loyalty. There seemed like there were real codes, you know, protecting your own, and whatever violence was committed seemed to be justified by they got what was coming to them, you know, and didn't follow the code or did the wrong thing. I think part of the fascination also is that you had really great artists that made these seminal mob movies, like Coppola and like Martin Scorsese, and then in television with, you know, David Chase and Terry Winters and Tim Van Patten on Boardwalk Empire, and these towering giants, you know, actors like De Niro and Pacino and, you know, Marlon Brando, you know. So I think that cemented its place, you know. I don't think you can extract that aspect of it to its success as a genre.
And Vincent, were you also influenced by The Godfather or any other film? And
absolutely.
And playing these parts also, were there particular actors that you emulated or impersonated? Because, you know, I know we all did.
Well, that was the exciting thing for me too, and not just the going through this period of time, but also trying to explore the influence Thomas was under from the cinema aspect of it. He was clearly a cinephile. You know, what movies were feeding him, and how would it, you know, dictate some of the decisions he makes, or some of his interactions, whether he's not just quoting the movies, but making decisions, thinking, you know, even though it's not a gangster movie per se, but like someone like a Rupert Pupkin from King of Comedy, you know, Casale's character, I think it was Sal in Dog Day Afternoon, you know, and again, not a mob movie, but of that 70s.
Right? Giannini was an influence on one of the scenes
With
on you.
with Giancarlo Giannini in Le Sette Bellezze.
That's right.
You know, there were, you know, just trying to go into these great movies that Michael had talked about, and then, you know, get to play a character that is so obsessed with them that he wants to be in them in some way, but yet in his neighborhood. It's made it a lot of fun. I would watch some of these movies over and over. Goodfellas, for instance, was, you know, I was a teenager. This movie came out, and everyone in my neighborhood was talking about it, quoting it. You know, it became like an exchange, a ritual exchange you have before you could actually start a conversation. You know, or the nicknames from it that would then, you know, spread throughout the neighborhood, and then variations of it, and then they form, you know, they create other nicknames. And so like a movie like Goodfellas, I think, was a big thing growing up. And of course Godfather, you know, was a, you know, very romantic telling of this lifestyle.
I have a question for you, Michael, because I know everybody's been still talking about Sopranos and the ending, and everybody has an alternate ending they would suggest. Would you change anything? What would you change to wrap up the series as opposed to the way
Oh,
it
I
did?
wouldn't change a thing. I thought it was a great ending.
So you don't agree with everybody just freaking out that it didn't tie up everything as they wanted to?
No, I think if they did tie things up the way, you know, a lot of people wish they would, they wouldn't have been as satisfied. There's no way to tie that show up to make it satisfying, you know? I mean, if you think about what the options would be, to see him murdered, to see him killed, whoever the villain was at the end of the show or something, you know what I mean? It's much more consistent with David Chase's work that there's an ambiguity to it. You know? Only thing I changed is to have Jim still with it. That's I'll say that.
And Nick, the final question for you, since you're right now in one of the hottest shows, Orange is the New Black, what can we expect from your character Caputo in the coming months?
Yeah, the stakes get really high for him. I think it's going to be a really powerful season. You know, they moved us into the drama category and the Emmys, and I think we're in the right place.